Welcome back to another episode here on the Inkwell Lounge. I'm your host, Chris, aka Questing for Lore, and in this week's episode, I got a chance to sit down for a chat with JBaum, who not only made the top 8 with Amber Steel at the DLC in Indy, but also creates a unique kind of content over on his channel, the Alter Academy. Sound interesting? Let's get to it. Well, hey JBaum, how's it going?
It is going well. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I followed along with some of the gameplay on an indie, and then you showed up on the Illuminateers last week. So
hmm
I was like, yeah, let's get him on. Let's talk a little bit more about it because I know you probably have a bigger story to tell than the little summarized version that you got to mention on the Illuminateers the other night.
Yeah,
So
I was telling myself the same thing, so I'm glad to be able to share that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the right venue for it. I love having people on, getting to know them, getting to know what's going on inside their head, especially on the competitive side. So
hmm
I'm looking forward to it. But let's start out with one of the first things that I like to get from people, kind of their origin story with Lorcana, with TCGs, with all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so my origin story goes back to probably whenever Yu-Gi-Oh came out. That would have been like 2002 or 3, I think. And so my brother and I got some packs, started playing competitively, and I actually won the season one at my locals for winning the most tournaments at I think 12 or 13 years old, and that kind of grew my interest in competitive card games and had made me think, oh, I'm like actually pretty decent at this. So I got better and better at Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, and then, funny enough, my first DLC equivalent in Yu-Gi-Oh was won by Dale Bolito, and he was my first loss at Indianapolis this past weekend.
How
So, like 20
funny.
years, almost 20 years later.
Yeah, small world, right?
Oh yeah, very
Yeah.
small.
Well, that's cool. So when did you kind of first get into Lorcana specifically?
Actually, going back to Yu-Gi-Oh, I was on a competitive team, and one of my old team members actually owns a store in the Chicago area in LGS. And when Lorcana was coming out, he said, "Hey, I think you'd be interested." In reality, it was just a pitch. He wanted me to come buy all the product he had, but I did, and I really enjoyed the game. And what really struck out to me about Disney Lorcana was just how simple of a game it was to learn, and how
Mhm.
expansive and thought intensive the high level and the ceiling and the skill level is. And so it really did a great job of using its Disney characters to capture a new audience. And then it really kept me because of just how complex and the inking decisions specifically were.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, it's one of those games that I know that Ravensburger has deliberately made it so that it's easily approachable.
Yeah.
Even into, we're in set 12 now, where we've got all sorts of new keywords, and now we've got different shift kind of things coming in Attack of the Vine. But, like you're saying, that core gameplay is still like really, really easy for, especially if somebody's playing TCGs before.
hmm
Um, super easy for basically anybody to just sit down and kind of learn the basics of it, and still have fun.
Yeah.
That's like the key, right? You don't want it
Right.
to be too simple, and then they not end up actually having fun doing it. But
Yeah.
there is that great progression up to the competitive side that so many people enjoy. So
Yeah, my biggest pet peeves in board games, which I play a lot of, is having to take an hour or 2 hours to learn the game. And so
yeah.
I was super appreciative of Lorcana, where I've literally read the instruction books, which is not very long, and I
Mhm.
knew how to play and had pretty much no questions, and was able to do my first game with like one read of the instruction book. Whereas like a lot of board games, I'm like reading it like 10 times, going back
Yeah.
and referencing. And so the fact that they were able to build a game so complex yet so simple is just really gonna help in its longevity, I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'm curious, what was your first set?
Set one, the
Oh,
day
okay,
it came
right
out
off. Yeah.
for LGS stores.
Okay. So you've definitely been around for a lot of it, yeah. Seen the game
Oh yeah,
grow. You know,
yes.
I'm interested. As somebody who formerly did some competitive events in a different game. Um,
hmm
like, how many of the DLCs have you been to besides Indy?
I believe I have been to 4 this season and 2 last season, so I think 6 total.
Okay, okay. And how would you say? I know the Yu-Gi-Oh events and stuff are a little bit more, not evolved, but they've had time to mature, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, how would you say that it kind of compares to the DLC experience?
Pretty similar, to be honest. Pastimes was doing the Yu-Gi-Oh events back then, and
Oh,
Pastimes doing the
okay.
Lorcana events now. I used to judge for Pastimes in a lifetime ago in the late 2000s. So it's kind of it kind of has the same feel and vibe, and uh, it's at the end of the day, it's a big social gathering where you see all these people you talk to online, and then you have the benefit of playing a game you love, and sometimes you can do well, and when people ask you how you're doing, you say I'm doing great.
Even if you're not doing great, you're still doing great,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. Getting to see
Um,
everybody is the best part of the DLCs. Playing and doing well is the side event, in my opinion.
yeah. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I've only been to a handful of them so far. I went to the Atlanta one way back.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then I've been to more lately with, Richmond and oh god, what was the one before that? Um,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Um, I've enjoyed both of those events so much just to be able to get to meet people that, normally you just talk to online or,
Hmm.
you may not have talked to before. And just to get to see everybody is this huge social experience.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it's always nice to like if you've got new players or people that maybe aren't as vocal in the community, to be able to like make those connections too, right? So you
Hmm.
have somebody that you've talked to on Twitter and then you bring them in and you say, hey, this is JDZ, I want you to meet him. You guys talk,
Yeah.
have a great time, and sometimes it's weird, like even this early on in the game's life, there's already these people that it's like you have people on the lore cast like Greg and JDZ and Rochelle, and you know basically anybody that plays the game kind of probably knows who they are.
Hmm.
um to be able to make it so that people understand that those people are human too. you know
Yeah.
they're not like these oh my gosh amazing people. It's like, no, they play the game just like the rest of us, so it's
Right.
it's great to have that connection with everybody. So I'm curious, what has been kind of your favorite experience at a DLC?
I got to say DLC Brazil was really enjoyable just from going with Team World Class Cards and
Mhm.
hanging out with all of them. And we rented a conference room and play tested the whole day before, and that was really fun. But then, like, the food experience and going out to dinner there and
Yeah.
kind of one of my fears in life is just going to new places without like any plans. And so when you're with a bunch of people you enjoy hanging out with and then experiencing all these new countries kind of together, it is a lot of fun. And that's kind of some of the best memories is going to Brazil and Bologna, because I only left the country 2 times prior, and neither
Hmm.
were for fun. It was for work and school. So I'm actually getting to leave the U.S. and hang out other places and experience the world. And so that's kind of been one of the most positive things of different DLCs, in my opinion.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure just to get to experience, experiencing the country and everything that you go to, but just a different set of players,
Hmm.
you get, I imagine, you kind of get used to the like the US bubble or even just your
Yeah,
local bubble, and to branch out and meet all new people and, and be able to experience the other cultures and everything yeah, I get it. I totally get it. So.
yeah. And the Brazil medal was a lot different than I was expecting, and I definitely brought the wrong deck because of that.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens. I've
Yeah.
heard of the differences between the the regions and everything. But once you start digging into the decks and stuff from the different events, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes more sense. But yeah, that's something I did not expect, and that may just be because I'm new to TCGs. So but yeah. So, okay. So, speaking of the competitive aspect, so you just kind of brought that competitive spirit over from Yu Gi Oh! And all that, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those, whenever I do something, I can't not try to do it the best I can possibly do it. And so if I'm gonna start collecting, I want to have one of the best collections. If I'm gonna start playing, I want to be one of the best players and try to play the best deck and win as many tournaments as I can. And so that's just sort of what is fun for me, is just that winning the set champ and then setting the next goal of getting the DLC Let It Go or Simba, and then after that, the
Mhm.
next goal is making Top Cut, and just trying to keep increasing achievable goals and hitting them is kind of what is why I'm playing and what's fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you top aided in Indianapolis, which is amazing. That's a huge accomplishment. I
Oh yeah,
forget how many players. I mean, it was still a pretty decent size. I
yeah,
think it was a
just over
little less.
1,700, I think,
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
17 to 1,800 range. I don't know the exact number, but around there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of players to have to overcome to make it to that point.
Hmm.
So kudos to you. That's very impressive. Um,
Oh yeah.
I do want to. So let's see here. Okay. All right. So I will superimpose this whenever we're doing the video
Hmm.
because it doesn't do this fun stuff on Riverside where I can show it. So,
Yeah.
um, okay. So in Indy, you played a steel or an amber steel deck,
Yep,
correct? Yeah.
that is correct. Right
Okay.
here.
So I'm curious, kind of walk us through, I know some of these are pretty standard, like Steel Song-ish kind of cards.
Hmm.
But there are some differences in here that I'm curious, you stuck the new Dale in there. You've got a Cood in there. I'm curious about your thought processes behind building this deck.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure I had a deck that could win games into the top decks of the format, which were uh, the Mirror Match, Steel Song, uh, Ruby Sapphire, Items or Shark, and Dogs. And this deck has a very strong matchup into Dogs and a very strong matchup into the fourth best deck, Green Purple. And so what was left is, how can I make this good into the mirror and good into Ruby, Sapphire, Sharks, and Items? And so early on, we found that You Have Forgotten Me and Bare Necessity was the key for Ruby Sapphire, and also helpful as well in Amber Steel in certain situations. Not as good as Ruby Sapphire. And so I basically built it around the two You Have Forgotten Me's and three Bare Necessities, and then worked kind of backwards to be able to make sure we could still fight Dogs and still fight the mirror match. And so on Friday, actually, my list was far different, and
Mm,
I played in the 7 rounder, which I recommend to everybody. And I played my deck knowing that that wasn't going to be the final list, but I played a bunch of one ofs so I could figure out and analyze which of these cards were winning games for me. And so I was on one Dale, one of the Stitch Snowboarders, one Big Cinderella, one Chenpo, gosh, what was, and one Namari. And so what I had found through the day is that Dale was extremely important in winning those dog matches that were kind of close. And what it allowed me to do was get a bunch of extra lore, because I'm now able to quest freely with all of my smaller characters. Because if
mhm.
he wants to challenge them back, he's going to lose those characters pretty much on everything but a big tramp and a big lady. And so I'm fine with that. And then this allows me to start gaining lore, as instead of sitting there in sort of a Mexican standoff type situation.
Yeah.
And so Dale became one of the MVPs of that Friday, and so we wanted to up those numbers to two. And the other thing I noticed too is I played Aurora, and he or she, excuse me, was extremely not good in the dogs match, because she just sort of sat there. If you used her ability to bring another character out, they would almost always challenge back, and then I couldn't just crack back there. And so she didn't really help in that matchup. She didn't really help a ton in the Amber Steel matchup, and she was okay in Ruby Sapphire. So Angel, on the other hand,
Mm,
can challenge a lot of the dog's characters and take them out. And so in those situations, I can sing a song, use Angel's ability, and then I'm still able to fight back. Or if they want to crack back, it's not a free trade like it was into Aurora, which in these close battles, every single character matters in the early game there. And so
yep.
that was really, really beneficial to my success in the Saturday portion and Sunday portion of Indianapolis. And then I didn't play Beyond the Horizon. I played Look at This Family, but
Hmm.
I was able to kind of get my ink to where I wanted it. So at the request of my teammate Patrick, which this ended up just being his list because all of my conclusions, he's like, "Oh, I'm already doing all of that," and I was like, "All right, I'll just run your exact 60 because everything I was
Yeah.
describing to him, he's like, I'm already doing that, and I found that a while ago, so you should have just started here." And so fair. But we got the Beyond the Horizon in, and Beyond the Horizon is one of those cards that it's either the worst draw in your deck or it wins you the game. And so it's fine having a few of those, not too many, because this deck really can brick like no other, and that kind of is a couple of my losses were sort of just I didn't get to play the game because I drew like the worst assortment of cards possible. But and Beyond the Horizon did end up being kind of a problem in those games, but it also was kind of the sole reason why I was able to win the Mickey match, and so that was pretty important there. But then Big Cinderella, uh, we wanted a couple of those in because there's those situations where you just shift her out on turn 3, and no deck can really do a lot except for Ruby Sapphire against that. And so
Hmm.
if you could just steal a few games in the tournament without really much standing in the way, why not? And so we like the big Cindy's there. And then pretty much all the other cards were kind of staples of the deck. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. And I should have asked this at the outset. Why Amber Steel?
I believed it was the only deck that had favorable matchups into Ruby Sapphire and Dogs at the same time. And so in my testing, I was beating those more than 50%. Dogs, a lot more than 50%. Shark was a little closer, and Items was like 60 or something percent. But and Sharks was closer to a coin flip, depending on how fast they could get to 7 and how much I could discard them. And so that was a really interesting matchup that we found that. Uh, in the early days of Amber Steel, you would actually be wanting to race the Shark deck and the Items
Hmm.
deck. But with You Have Forgotten Me and Bare Necessity, you actually want to take more of a control route and just discard all of their cards and not let them get to 7 ink while slowly developing your aerials and beasts, and then eventually just have so many cards that when they do B prep you, you can just fill the board right back and just
Yeah.
keep sending haymaker after haymaker. And so that is ultimately why we decided, Patrick Cote and I decided on Amber Steel, because we were just having such good matchups into a lot of the best decks.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's a great deck. I can definitely see why it would work well, especially with some of the other Infinity decks that I had seen you know out there floating, the other folks in the top 8, I guess.
Yeah, every card is either drawing a card, discarding a card, or banishing a card, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to see. Well, it's interesting to hear that it did so well against some of the dogs matchups. I know a lot
Hmm.
of people were, just expecting that to just wipe out everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I said, let me play dogs all day. That's all I want to play. On Friday, I 2-0'd all of them on the draw. And then I didn't actually play a dog until round 8 of the DLC. It
Oh,
was the first dog I
okay.
played.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's surprising. It was because it was a pretty
Yeah.
large percentage.
Yeah. I have this weird, I don't know if you call it a curse, but I never really hit the most popular deck that often in a tournament. Like Atlanta, Steel Song was by far the most popular, played it one
Mhm.
time. Uh, Dogs, most popular, played it one time in day one. So we saw a lot of dogs the next day. So it
Yeah.
evened out. But it's always just sort of odd that like some people hit 6 dogs, and I'll just miss the most popular deck and just be in the weird shadow realm of fighting for my life against decks I have no idea what they're doing, which did happen in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. So out of all the people that you played against, were there any like spice cards that you weren't expecting, or was it
Yeah,
just kind of the usual, or?
I played against Vo, who is a very good player from Minnesota on Team Arcana, and he started off with Shift Diablo Ursula, which is one of the best plays you can do. But then he started following up with It Calls Me, and so I'm trying to figure out like why would this be in the deck? But it
Hmm.
was in the deck because he wanted to send all my characters from my discard to my deck, so he could play that Emerald Chernabog that will, when you play it, send a character
Oh,
to the bottom
yeah.
of your opponent's deck. But The downside is I get to take a character from my discard and put it into play. And so
Right.
he was just playing a bunch of cycle cards, getting those It Calls Me, and then using the Chernobog as removal. And so I had never seen this deck. I'd never played against it. And then it hits the strongest opening against me game 1 and 2. So I'm just kind of thinking, what is going on and how do I get out of the situation? And luckily, he just sort of drew only 1 and 2 drops for like the 7 extra cards he drew over me and couldn't really capitalize on the card advantage. But it was definitely not how I wanted to start my day at 8:30 in the morning to like use every brain cell I had to figure out like what was going on. And I definitely played a couple times in that matchup just because I had no clue what was happening.
Yeah, that's an interesting tactic. I don't think I've heard of that one. That's
No, and he made day two as well. So after he lost round one
oh,
and then came back and made day two with it, so there was a few good players on that style of deck. So it was something that I never explored. So if there was more time, I would have liked to go back and looked at that because that was quite an interesting start to my day.
interesting. Yeah, I would think that would be a little rough. Hopefully it didn't. Hopefully it didn't like mess with your head too much. I mean, it seems like it didn't because you kept on
It
moving
woke
up.
me up, that's for sure.
Yeah, who needs coffee, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, in your preparation for the Indianapolis event, was there any other kind of differences between how you prepared for like a core constructed or how you might prepare for like an infinity? Was it more just deck selection was different, or was there anything else?
Yeah, so Infinity, we basically knew we were either going to play Ruby Sapphire Dogs or Steel Song pretty early on, just because nothing could really fight those three outside of those three, in our
Mhm.
opinion. And so Green Purple was quite close, but just not the style that any of us really like to play. And so it kind of came down to just personal preference and what everyone was having the most success with, what people have reps with. And so one of the things I like to preach in Disney Lorcana is your deck isn't necessarily the most important thing. It's play the deck that you're going to make the least mistakes on because mistakes are where you lose the most percentage points. And so if two decks are very close, the deck that you're going to make less mistakes on is going to be the one you're going to win more with because if you play both decks perfectly, they're going to be very close in percentages, but making one mistake will throw the game down maybe 10-15% not in your favor. And so you just want to play what is going to be the most comfortable and you're going to understand and incorrectly the entire day.
Yeah, that's it's amazing the importance of like understanding a deck and it feeling right, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that, I've played decks in the past. It's like, yes, this is one of the best ones, on the core constructed side. Obviously it's slightly different, but this is one of the best ones right now. It's like I should definitely play this. And then you kind of get into it and you're like, you're just not feeling it,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, that and this might be different for like the highly competitive folks, like yourself and others. It seems like if you play a deck that you don't like, you don't feel comfortable with, yeah, you're going to make those mistakes more often.
Yeah.
It's harder to think through those lines because it's just not how your brain works.
Right.
You're used to certain types of decks, and
Yeah.
it's such an important connection that you have to make.
Yeah, and going off what you said, you want to have fun. Make sure you're having fun with the deck you're playing. When Bucky was really popular, Emerald Steel was a very popular deck. I just did not have fun playing that deck. I just felt like I didn't have as much control over the game as I wanted to, and there'd be games I knew I lost, and I was nowhere. My opponent was nowhere close to 20, and I just had to sit there twiddling my thumbs for 5 or 6 turns while I waited for him to slowly get there, even though I knew I had no chance. And so I just
Hmm.
that's a great example of a deck that it was very good, just not my style, and I just didn't have fun playing with it. So I just didn't really play it competitively.
Yeah, no, totally get it, totally get it. And it's one thing to like play this stuff, more casually, and you play it at league, you kind of start getting used to it, and actually playing it against other people and all that, and not just your random testing.
Yeah.
And it's like it's really, at least for me, it's really obvious whenever a deck is not my style or is not going to work. And I
Yeah.
know some people it takes a little bit to get there to be able to
Hmm.
recognize that kind of thing. But I think anybody that's been playing any TCG or specifically Lorcana, um, you could just kind of tell after a little while. So, and there's people that
Yeah.
play, they're like, yes, I always play, Amber Steel. That's what I play. No matter what the meta decks are, there will be something that I can, make with Amber Steel. Just because of like the identities of the ink and, kind of what they feel like to play.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting to see, in Attack of the Vine, they're kind of like we're in the middle of reveal season right now, so we've gotten a couple
Yeah.
of them, but it seems like they're kind of starting to blur those lines a little bit, and I don't know if it's like an intent to kind of even things out so that those ink identities and the kind of things that they're known for aren't as prevalent or aren't
Hmm.
as potent, I guess, with this newer set.
Yeah, very much agree. And I love seeing these different color combos starting to shine where we didn't see green blue for a very long time, and it got pretty popular in the last core set. And green yellow similarly started with discard, now dogs, and so it's gonna be Ruby Steel's day sometime. It's gonna be Amber Sapphire's day sometime, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited for those type of color identities to have their time to shine.
Yep. So just based on what we've seen, I don't know. Do you keep up much with the reveals, or do you kind of like after
I
everything's
do.
done? Okay.
I'm in a few discords where we're watching them and saying, "Ooh, I like this." And my problem with reveals is, as not really a problem, but it's just kind of my deck building brain is, as we release more and more cards, the kind of it takes a lot to be a card good enough to make it into a deck, and so
Mhm.
a lot of them just don't excite me as much as I was in like past sets where season one it's like I'm playing just a song that doesn't do anything and it's inkable just to have more hits with Ariel, and so now it's like okay, how do these cards get bigger and more powerful? But the other side of that is once I do see one like that, I do get very excited for those type of cards.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any specific one so far that or a couple, I guess, that you're really excited about trying to figure out how to work
I
into some decks?
Yeah, I like this Sapphire Hades that they're just saying turn 4 I'm going to play a ward, turn 5 I'm going to play a ward, turn 6 I'm going to play a ward, and as long as you just aren't racing faster, there's not much you can do to stop that. And so that kind
Yeah.
of creates an interesting game, a race gameplay basically. And so I kind of like that style of Kiwi started, where just play a lot of ward characters, go to 20 fast, and
Hmm.
that's the play is much stronger on the play than on the draw, and so we'll see how it kind of turns out. But when you have cards like that are warded and then Demona that can just make your trades very strong, it's going to be a powerful deck, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. I remember that when it was revealed, I was like, well, that's fun. That looks like it could be really interesting, to try to build the deck around, especially with, so many ward characters. And there's some really
Yeah.
good ward characters too. So,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, how things kind of evolve. I know, some of the competitive teams, I'm sure they're already, brewing up something and trying to figure out if those missing pieces are going to come in. I that's kind of the other thing, I guess, about building decks. You build these things, and then after a while, once you start getting more experience, like yourself and other competitive players, you start kind of getting a feel for what's missing from a deck.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and especially with reveal season going on, sometimes you're over in the corner crossing your fingers for something that can kind of fill that hole. So is there anything that you've spotted that you think would be a perfect fit for a previous deck, or is it just, kind of ideas about new decks that have been floating around?
I think with rotation happening, it's very hard to answer the question because everything is just getting uh, sent out of the pool, and so I think there's going to be some type of dogs deck that'll still be pretty okay, just because Eleanor is a very strong card, and cards
Mhm.
that draw a card and deal damage are always going to have uh, some strong play lines, and so the toy deck is going to be interesting because that
Yeah.
was very close to being good already, and that it was already 56 cards that are going to be still allowed to be played after post rotation, and so it's really quite interesting. And so this is kind of the time to, if you want to do some content, you start putting out new post core lists, because this is where people are most excited in the grand scheme of Lorcana.
Yeah, definitely. It's and I think just the general buzz around reveals, period, is always really
Hmm.
fun. I know it's like a fire hose, to try to keep
Yeah.
up with half of this stuff, but and I'm glad they do like the main stage stuff where they can kind of spotlight certain cards and spotlight,
Yeah.
the art or the gameplay reasoning behind it. I have the utmost respect for the folks that do the gameplay, like that figure out how the cards work, especially when
Yeah.
they're introducing new mechanics into sets. It's that they're on a whole different like thought level. I mean, I'm I'm having having trouble sometimes like trying to understand the relationship between two cards, like
Hmm.
rules kind of things. And
Yeah.
they're like so much higher level that they're like, oh yeah, no, that works this way. And this past set, think about this. And they got like this knowledge about all the anyway. Yeah, they're doing a great job with the game. Let's just say that. We'll sum it up that way. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the competitive side of things. I want to get to another topic that I'm really curious about. So, you are also a content creator.
Hmm.
You've been running a channel for about a year or so now, Alter Academy. I'm curious. I want to hear it in your words. Kind of, what is the channel? What are the goals? What
Yeah.
is it about?
Yeah. So what originally started off with was my prior team had asked everybody to make some form of content, and so I was like, what's sort of missing, and kind of an easy layup that no one's really doing. And I was looking at altars, where altars are such a dynamic and important part of the game, and there wasn't really any content or any kind of advice out there. And so I was like, well, one, this is going to be pretty easy content to make, because the editing is pretty limited and small, and as someone
Mhm.
who's not very tech handy, that is right up my wheelhouse. So I don't really do much editing on that, so that's really nice aspect about it. And then two, I'm able to kind of bring some of the best players in the world and get inside their head and have them teach me about the game. And so one, that helps my own game, and two, it helps other people understand the decks they want to learn and the decks they're playing against, on what their opponent's thinking and how they're shaping their first three or four couple turns there.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of content creators, and that kind of message is similar. That they have people on the show, or they do these deck analysis kind of things, and they're doing it, and it's helping them improve their own
Hmm.
game. And it's kind of
Yeah.
it's like slightly selfish, but you also want to share that knowledge, right?
Yeah, yeah. It is definitely a little selfish on some of the guests I I bring in, because I'm like, I don't understand how this player alters, and I really am curious how their mind works and want to see. But in that selfishness, I think other people are also curious on this, so I kind
Yeah.
of can get away with that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like it's, oh, come, give me some personal coaching for free. It's more of
Right.
like, I'm learning just along with everybody else that's watching this video. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And you've had like Humble and Frank Karsten and Fungus and Mo Shamblin and all sorts of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, who's been your favorite guests, and what's kind of been your favorite episode?
It's funny you say Frank Karsten, because his was one of my favorite episodes, because I just had no idea what he was ever going to send back with the altars. Most of the time I agree, and I'm like 7 out of 8 cards the same, but Frank, his brain is just built different, and I never knew what he was going to say. And he was, it was so interesting, because a lot of players don't really have too much of a different strategy on the play and on the draw, but he was so methodical and so different in his thinking for on the play and on the draw. And I think that's why he is so successful in all the tournaments, because he just has this just distinct, this is exactly my game plan, this is exactly what I'm always going to do. And just how these differing, if I keep these sort of cards, then I can't keep this, or because I'm keeping this, then I get to keep this, and those situations. And so it was just so interesting and thought provoking for me. And that was one of the episodes I learned kind of the most from. And then another one, Kurt Spice showed me just how little I understood about altering for dogs, because I thought we were supposed to be going for Willow like every time, and he's just like, "Get that out of there. We don't need that. We're going for a stronger opening lines." And I was like, "That's crazy. Like, this is why I'm not winning with dogs. It's just because I just don't know the alters, and just be successful at these high level tournaments, you have to get the alters right."
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And and a lot of it also depends on what your opponent is playing as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely you have to know those lines. You have to know how to adjust those things. And yeah, definitely the first couple of turns. I mean, that sets the pace of the game.
Yeah.
So if you don't get those quite right, then yeah, you're gonna struggle. So, and we've all been there.
Hmm.
You'll misplay something or misjudge what they have maybe have in their hand right then, but um it happens. It's a competitive game, and so sometimes it just happens that way.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I watched a couple of episodes. It's really interesting, kind of a topic to focus on, because I think
Hmm.
a lot of players, they kind of think, oh yeah, I have my lines, I know how to go through the altars and everything, but they don't think through it at the level that you guys all talk about, to
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, no, you want to get rid of this and this if they're playing this, and then save this for later. And yeah, it's wild to see how some of these players, how their minds work.
Yeah, and I will say the thing I learned most for Infinity is in a lot of core decks, I would be content keeping sort of just an average play line there. But Infinity, everyone was like, no, you got to be greedy. You got to be doing broken things the first couple of turns, because the other
Mhm.
the other opponent is also going to be on the gas, and you're going to have to just out broken their broken plays. And so I had to get a lot greedier and aggressive in my alters for Infinity specifically, which really, really helped me out, I believe. And I learned
Nice.
that from Alter Academy.
Yay, there you go. I mean, that's awesome. Oh, have you done any like other content creation, or was this your first shot at it?
My first shot was actually, I did a couple collection videos of people with a really, really expensive collection back in the early days. Um, so we're talking like a lot of D23 2022 sets, enchanted
Mm-hmm.
discards, and kind of those early, like, hard to get cards.
Okay. All right. And so, how do you feel like your skills and your approach to it have evolved since then?
I have gotten a lot better at getting discussions and going on the fly and kind of just reacting to what the players are saying, and kind of segueing to do discussions and whatnot. And so that's also helped my ability to, I believe, start casting as well, which has been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot you. What was the event you did? Was it? It was something recently, wasn't it? Just like in the
Yeah, it
last
was
couple of
the
months.
WCC double 5K at Lambeau Stadium up in Green Bay.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah. How was that? What was that experience like?
The venue was incredible. If they hosted a DLC there, it would be awesome. Steve Warner was there playing with people, and he had like an all iconic deck, which was crazy and awesome to
Oh my
see.
gosh,
And
really?
yeah, he was playing green blue with like all iconics. It was fantastic. And then uh, it was such a great experience. And then getting to cast with two of the best, and Katie and JDZ, was just incredible, and being able to learn from them. And uh, the really interesting side effect of casting that event was just how good I got at reading players' hands.
Mhm.
So, and that I actually brought that with me to DLC Indianapolis, where I'm like, okay, you didn't do your best possible turn here, and you did this instead. That means you likely have X, Y, and Z in hand. And most of the time, I'm like correct and able to kind of play around and uh, do my moves based on that, especially against the dogs opponents. And that was really, really crucial to my strong run, was just because of the casting, and literally me trying to, on these slower turns, just figure out every single thing that's going through these players' brains, and saying like, oh, he could be doing this, he could be doing that. It forced me
Mhm.
to just go to this place where I think through everything a lot more than I had been doing prior. And that really, really kind of changed something in me to unlock kind of a special power of just reading the opponents just way better than I used to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. It's, I did, I tried casting. It's not, I don't think it's my thing, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was an interesting experience, but yeah, it definitely taught me a lot about how, how much work it takes to be able to do that kind of stuff, to be able to read the hands and understand, what the best play is, or,
Mm-hmm.
kind of guess those thought patterns, because there's a lot that goes into, not only do you have to know the deck, that they're playing, you have to know some of the common play lines, how it matches up against the opponent. All that stuff has to be like swimming around in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a good caster that can, like you're saying, that can kind of like narrow that down and be able to share it in an effective way, which, is
Yeah.
pretty impressive still to me. Cause yeah, I've tried and it was, it was not my deal. So, mm,
Yeah, talking unscripted for hours and hours and hours while always having to stay on it is extremely draining and tiring,
yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you hope, right?
Yeah.
You hope you get in there and like I'm sure once you kind of get in the flow of it and, and you started on a game and you just start talking, I'm sure it's a lot easier than,
Hmm.
trying to think through and like reason through every single thing. But especially if
Yeah.
you're an experienced player, I think some of that just comes naturally with that experience as well. So,
Hmm. Definitely.
So I'm curious, back on Ultra Academy. Sorry, I get on tangents all the time.
Oh,
So,
no, no, no problem.
um, so I'm curious. Where do you see that going in the future? Are you gonna keep with the same kind of flow, and do you keep doing the altars, or is there any other plans for it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a successful. There's sort of a ceiling on it. I definitely would be the first to admit where you can't really kind of expand too much. I can probably make it look a bit nicer than it does right now, and that's probably some goals to come out here shortly as I get better with editing tools and whatnot. And so
Mhm.
I've gotten a bit of feedback, and I just continue to try and do that every once in a while. And so just trying to clean it up, spice it up, and get a more crisp and polished product. But at the end of the day, people are there to see the best players in the world share how they alter, and so as long as I don't change that, people will keep coming back to wanting to learn.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever thought about doing any other kind of content and like another thing? I mean, I know, you in your copious
Yeah,
amounts of free time.
yeah, I'm currently working on going back to my collection roots and kind of
Hmm.
starting a finance channel. I've just
Oh,
as you
cool.
said, I've just been trying to find the time to actually sit down and do it. I kind of go through these bursts of energy where I can
Mhm.
knock out a bunch of stuff, and I just haven't had that burst of energy to start a new channel yet. So maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't, but it's been on my mind for the last month or so with the
Nice.
recent price increases on all these cards.
Oh my gosh, that's been insane. I think we got so used to Lorcana kind of being in its own little bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, some of the cards they got pretty expensive, a couple $100 or something. But now to see like, these Buzz Lightyears selling for thousands and thousands,
Mm-hmm.
and it being so hard to find product. I know,
Yeah.
I mean, we're only a little bit away from Attack of the Vine, but I don't know about your LGS or ones in your area. But ours sold out like super fast. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's kind of that side effect of, some of the collectors kind of finding out about the game and realizing,
Yeah.
oh, I could actually make some money here, and so then you see the pictures on, like Twitter or wherever else of people that have ordered just these massive orders of this stuff. And you're like, oh crap, are we going to be able to find the product for us to actually play the game? That's
Yeah.
what we want, right?
Yeah. The good news is because of like this demand and what I believe the legendary increased rates were, singles have actually gotten cheaper while these collectible cards have gotten more expensive. And so I really
Mhm.
applaud Disney Lorcana for making the expensive cards alt arts so you can always reasonably afford to play most of the main decks.
Yeah, and especially with something like an Infinity deck, you've got all these older cards that when they were first introduced and when they were first popular in core, you've got like the Rapunzel and Beast and all that, and the prices on those were ridiculous at the
Hmm.
time. But now they're way down there, but which is a nice thing, but yeah, seeing some of these, especially the iconics and everything, just blast through the roof on the pricing is
Yeah.
just it's wild for those of us that have gotten used to, oh, okay, $200 or $150 for this one card, is absolutely insane, and now it's like $7,000, and it's like, oh no, are we going
Yeah.
to keep going this direction? But like you said, a lot of those staples, a lot of the the older cards and stuff, they definitely have dropped down in price. I was trying to order some stuff this morning to fill out my Rena Jafar collection with foils, and I was pleasantly surprised at how affordable a lot of those cards were. So,
Hmm.
versus when they were popular. But I
Yeah.
guess that's just the nature of more sets coming out, rotation. Some of that, I'm sure after rotation, a lot of these cards that are in these last couple of sets are going to drop too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future looks like. If it'll just keep going, on this upward trend, or if it'll kind of level off after a while and then maybe settle down a little bit
Yeah.
more. So I'll be interested to see.
Me as well.
I think it just caught everybody by surprise mostly,
Yeah,
because
it
it
was
was
just
not
so
something.
fast and out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it wasn't like last set. There were iconics and they were great. They were
Hmm.
beautiful, but there was just something about, and I don't know if it was the Toy Story aspect that was so popular or what it was that just triggered everybody to start coming in.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, people love Pixar.
yeah, yeah, they do. And especially I guess with the it's not directly coinciding with it, but with the the Toy Story 5, the newest movie coming out, it kind of brings it back to the
Yeah.
front of people's minds, and maybe they were like, hey, I remember reading about that card game, that Disney one, I wonder, they start
Hmm.
looking around. So it's always interesting to me to see how many people are Disney fans first, and then they're like, "Oh, well, this looks like a fun game," and then they
Yeah.
pick it up because of that Disney connection.
Yeah.
And you wonder how much that plays into it because, you know, Disney collector items are. I mean, Disney is known for making collector items. They're
Hmm.
like, Disney fans will spend money, we'll make them.
Yep.
And so it seems like maybe that kind of came over a little bit into Lorcana. It's like making these iconics that are going to be super popular. Knowing that you're going to have these Disney folks coming in and saying, "Oh yeah, I'll totally pay for those high cards," just
Yeah.
because it's collector item, it's rare, it's especially the iconics, but even the enchanteds, and you start going down into the epics, and you can see the progression of the price drop,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I'm glad they're introducing new card types and new rarities, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the full set of Attack of the Vine looks like,
Yeah.
and then moving forward too. What all is going to change as far as different card types and everything. So
Well said.
I have to admit, being, I think my first set was Floodborne,
Hmm.
and being kind of in that first period where it was the legendaries and the foils, and it was like, oh, okay, cool, that's the highest level. When they started introducing these other cards, epics, and I guess the enchanteds, they had those from set one, but but the epics and the iconics, they're really working on trying to make sure that the pack opening experience is still super fun for people, and that's kind
Yep.
of evolving too, not just the game. So I'm curious, has there been any well, okay, so let's just say, you mentioned you kind of do, on the collector side as well. So what is your pride and joy right now?
Um, Probably the gold Mickey I actually won, but
Well, yeah,
yeah,
okay, all right.
Uh,
Just a little bit of
but
a flex there. Yeah, you know what I
but
mean,
I
though.
really I really like this. Actually, I just have it handy. But I had Kendall Hale make a Keyblade off of the Scimitar card, and so that
Hmm.
was a really cool card that I have in my personal collection there. And so, and then the D23. I'm just looking at my case over here. The D23 2022 set I've had forever, and so that one is just one that has been always just a lot of things have come and gone in that case, and that one's old faithful, and so that one has
Yeah.
been the tried and true set. And then the Enchanted Elsa from set one has
Mm.
an interesting place in my heart because and the first day, me and my brother were trying to find as many packs as we could, and he didn't know what the game was, and so he was FaceTiming me. He found a trove, and so he was FaceTiming me as he opened it, and he was asking what the rarest card was, and I was like, "It's this Elsa without any borders, and it's really shiny." And then he holds a card up and he goes, "Is it this?" And he had pulled the Enchanted Elsa while I was talking about it, and then we're chatting. I was like, "Oh, that's incredible." Then he opens another pack and he goes, "Hey, look, I got another one. These aren't that rare." And so he pulled two Enchanted Elsas in the first trove he ever opened,
No
and
way.
and yeah, and he gave me one of those ones just for kind of being there with him for the game and just realizing like how crazy lucky that is and stuff. And so that card has never left my case and it's been sitting there since basically the second week of Lorcana being out. So that's probably my actual favorite card of just being able to see my brother open those two Elsa's and one FaceTime call was insane.
Yeah, I mean, holy cow. That's crazy. Get him to like, come over and like, rub your packs or,
uh,
bless them or something.
Yeah, he's opened like 20 enchanteds in less than 200 packs.
Oh my
He's the type that
gosh.
he'll go to Target, buy two packs, and hit an enchanted 100% of the time. It is actually nuts. Like a couple weeks ago, I was telling him the value on Winnie the Pooh, and he's like, "Oh, I've got one of those." Like, and I was like, "When'd you get that?" He's like, "Oh, I went to the Target and they had a random fabled pack. I bought it and it had a Winnie the Pooh enchanted in it." And I was like, "How do you
Oh
do
my
this every
gosh.
time?"
Seriously. It's always interesting, and I know the hit rates and everything have gotten or seems like they have gotten higher, in
Mhm.
Wilds, and I'm sure it'll continue in Attack of the Vine and everything. But yeah, there's still just something about it, when you slide that last card up and see that that icon at the bottom.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the epics have done a really good job because I used to be kind of not disappointed, but like you'd get the enchanted because you'd see like the borderless when you're trying to like slowly flip it, and so the
yeah.
enchanteds kind of fake you out now. And so now I'm back to when it's an enchanted, I'm actually like super excited again because I didn't know until I pull that card off and see it. So thank you
Mhm.
for epics for making the pack opening just a little bit more exciting for me again.
Yep. Yeah, and I love the epics. I mean, the style of them, I mean, I know it changes from set to set, but just
Hmm.
the feel of the epics, is nice. It definitely has that kind of a little bit more premium than the foils and, and everything, while not being quite as, pricey and, rare, I guess, as some of the enchanted and the iconics.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, speaking of Attack of the Vine, is there anything besides specific cards, any kind of mechanic or anything, or I guess any character, anything like that? Because we know most of the IP by now, but anything that you are looking forward to in that set?
Yeah, I'm really liking the concept of the Vinelings. It's basically like
Mhm.
if they got the Last of Us virus on like all the characters we love,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of giving them kind of interesting uh, Floodborne on play effects. And so I'm really loving the lore and the intricacies of what the Vine brings to Disney Lorcana. And so they've really nailed the theme here, and I'm really just kind of excited about all those Vineling cards.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's one thing that's really nice that it's not just let's slap Disney characters on cards. It's like,
Hmm.
there's this whole world building that they do, and and it carries from set to set, so it's not like just this isolated kind of thing. I think it was the last one of the last main stages. Somebody asked, "Is this the last time we're going to see Arcasia?" And I think Rochelle was like, I can't say yes or no. And it's like It's like, so that's a no. I mean, that's, and to be able to understand that, they're trying to make this wider world of, where you have the Illumineers, you have, the
Mhm.
glimmers and everything. And it, you kind of got that base foundation for the story. But then to be able to tell additional stories on top of that is really cool. And, and I'm glad that they decided to go that route versus,
Yeah,
just isolated things in different sets. So
yeah. And I'm a big fan of Boost. I think that's been the best introduction that I've seen since kind of the game's inception, because it allows you to create cards that aren't necessarily that powerful on play, but when they get the boost effect, then they are. So with the extra cost, like in those later turns, the card becomes better as you have access to more ink and kind of worse in the early game. And so I love those kind of dual design cards that have these kind of added costs and benefits. And so that has been kind of my favorite addition to the game.
yeah, yeah, I think Whispers was one of my favorite sets in the recent sets, just because of that. The
Hmm.
introduction of Boost, and and just the Whispers in general. I liked,
Yeah.
they all basically had Boost, and and yeah, it was really cool to see, like, that was an interesting mechanic. I would have not expected that. And I, granted, I haven't played other TCGs, so that might be something that's pretty common in other games,
Yeah.
but that was the first time I had really heard of it, so I thought it was pretty cool. So I agree.
Yeah. Big fan of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Hey, all right. So I always end these things. Thank you so much, by the way. I
Not a
really
problem.
appreciate it. I've had a great time talking to you. Thank you for walking me through your deck and kind of some of your thinking behind it. I can barely handle core constructed half the time. To be able to understand infinity and have this huge card pool to pull from,
Hmm.
and to be able to narrow it down into 60 to actually make an effective deck, super impressed. I don't know if I would be able to do that and actually make something, that would work, right?
Yeah.
um but anyway, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And kind of some of your thought behind your channel and everything. I do want to end with the same 4 questions that I ask everybody. So, first off, favorite ink and card right now? And it could
Favorite
be
ink
cards
and
you'd like
card
to
right
play or card
now.
art, either one.
Um, Sapphire is definitely my favorite ink because I love ramping. And right now, my favorite card is probably oh gosh, I really like the Boost Cheshire Cat. I've never played it in a
Mm,
tournament, but I like the idea of it, and I like just how punishing he is in the later games with challenges and leaving damage up. So he just created such an intricacy and delicate dance in the game and board state that he has just really unlocked like a lot of brain power when having to go against him. And so while I don't really play him, I love the the gamesmanship that that card creates.
hmm Yeah, it's a menace. I just have to say, I've had
Hmm.
it played against me so many times, and
Yeah,
it is quite annoying whenever it really starts popping off. So, but yeah, it is a great card. I agree with you there. So, okay, next question: favorite Disney movie and why?
it's got to be Toy Story, just because when I saw the movie in theaters, I was 5 years old and basically could just see myself as Andy in that movie. And then you get to Toy Story 2, and then Toy Story 3, I'm literally going to college like when that movie comes out. And when he gives his toys away at the end, it's kind of like me in the same sense. So it just like the whole story literally followed my exact timeline. And so now we got Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5 where the young kid has the Bonnie has the toys now, and
Hmm
it's I don't know, it's just been so weird like having my whole life like follow the same timeline as Andy and whatnot. And I think that's just made me enjoy it more as the years go on, because Monsters Inc. growing up I did like more, but I think just kind of the nostalgia of Toy Story and how my life kind of followed Andy really just added to it in my older years.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm sure that's an experience probably shared by a lot of people around the same age. To
Yeah.
because I mean, Toy Story has just been such like a a fundamental part of Disney and and a lot of people's lives for so long now. With the fifth
Hmm.
one coming out just recently. um, and to see people that really resonate with those characters. Sometimes it's the fact that they resonate with Andy, or other
Yeah.
times it's like, oh yeah, I totally get the whole Buzz Woody dynamic. Somebody maybe a little bit older, but yeah, it's cool. So,
Yeah. I'm a Rex guy myself.
there you go. Nice. Yeah, yeah. High quality character there, and good bodyguard too. So
Oh yeah. He's an
yeah.
okay bodyguard. A
I
lot of things
mean,
can get through him.
it's true, but with the options that you have, like in a toys deck, he's
Yeah.
he's pretty useful.
He's helpful. He's got his time
He
to
is.
shine.
It's because he's got the little short arms that he's not, that
Yeah.
bodyguard.
It's like I'll bodyguard one character, not a couple, not more than
Yeah,
one.
that's
I
all
can
he can
stop one.
cover with the little short arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so give a shout out to your favorite LGS or LGSs.
It's got to be Hot Sauce Games, right, pretty much next to my house. They were actually vending at DLC Indianapolis, and
Yeah,
Adam,
cool.
the owner, is been kind of one of the main reasons I've stuck around Lorcana so long, because he helped me get the cards in my collection in the early days and helped me understand grading and whatnot. And so he's been awesome. And then Robert from World Class Cards, he's not technically my LGS, but I've been to the store and he helps me get all the cards I need to be able to play in the tournaments. And so wouldn't be here without both of those awesome individuals helping me learn and play the game.
Nice. Yeah, it's always cool when you have like a good source to kind of help you, like reinforce your involvement in the game.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people, it's really easy to like have a big burst of, oh yeah, I'm gonna totally play Lorcana for forever, and then it kind of fades a little bit. But when
Yeah.
you have that good community around you, a good LGS to go to, good folks that run it, or have a team around you is super important, honestly.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
All right, and last question: where can people find you and your content? And if do you have any events that you're going to be playing at coming up?
Yes, I'll be at the North American Continental Championship, which
Yeah,
I'm very, very excited to say. I got the email today confirming that I did, in fact, qualify. So, very excited there. So, I'll be in Anaheim in the last week of August, I believe, and competing there. And it's going to be awesome.
awesome. And how about your content and everything? Where can people find you there?
Ah, YouTube is JBaum TCG, and then on Twitter, I believe I'm JBaum1234.
It's the same code as my luggage. Oh God, I just dated myself. Um, all right, cool. And I'll make sure and get all the links and everything. I will see you in Anaheim. I will be there as well. So it'll be good to
Awesome.
actually shake your hand and meet you in person.
Can't wait.
Um, but yeah, again, congratulations on Indianapolis. I mean, like I said, it's an amazing accomplishment and definitely well deserved. With the deck and the thought that you put behind it, and thinking through the matchups and everything. It's no small feat. So, but
Appreciate it.
yeah, of course. All right, cool. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you around the community.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening into my chat with JBaum, and definitely make sure to check out his content over on the Alter Academy. So, if you like the show, make sure to subscribe, rate, and like the show on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can find us on all the socials at Inkwell Lounge, or you can find a full list of links at inkwelllounge.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.